Hello, welcome to Post Colonial Space. I'm Masood Raja, and today I will briefly be talking about a political topic, so please bear with me. This video is about Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan's stance on Ukraine, Russian invasion of Ukraine, and his actions in the last few weeks after the vote of no confidence was introduced against him. In my opinion, these actions are extremely damaging to Pakistan in so many ways, and I hope to share that with you. But first, let's set aside the questions that will come my way. What gives me the right to speak about Pakistan? One, I'm a scholar on Pakistan and South Asia, and I have a learned and sophisticated, so to speak, opinion about the region, or opinions about the region. Two, Pakistan is my native country. That's where I was born, that's where I was raised, that's where I lived most of my early life, actually most of my life. And that's where my ancestors and my parents are buried and my family lives. So I have absolutely the right to worry about Pakistan and to speak about Pakistan as a scholar, but also as a human being. So let's go to Ukraine. The very day Putin invaded Ukraine, this was the image that people saw on TV screens. Imran Khan shaking hands with Putin. Now, I don't care what rationalizations they give, that America invaded Iraq and America has done atrocious things too. We know about them. I was actually there the day the second Iraq war was launched, protesting against it with thousands of other Americans, right, on the campus of Florida State University. None of those reasons, rationalizations, and deflections can undo this image. Keep this in mind. Here is what was happening. A powerful nation state, Russia, on flimsy grounds, was in the process of invading a smaller neighbor. And the moment it was unfolding on the TV screens of the world media, Imran Khan was in Russia, shaking hands with Vladimir Putin. That's the significance of that image, which can never be undone. That image will live in eternity as proof that when rest of the world, majority of the world, was condemning the Russian attack, unprovoked attack on Ukraine, the Pakistani Prime Minister was actually shaking hands with the person who had unleashed that destructive war. There is another thing to look at here. Think about Pakistan. Who does it consider its belligerent nation? India, with a larger army, stronger economy. Tomorrow, in the future, God forbid, let's say if India decides to invade Pakistan, the situation is similar, a powerful, large nation invading its neighbor. Where do you think you would like the world to be? Would you like the leaders of the world shaking hands with the Indian Prime Minister at that time? Or would you like them to condemn that act, right? I mean, I'm just speaking hypothetically, but for Pakistan, in terms of its foreign policy, it absolutely never suits Pakistan to be in the camp of the aggressor power, a larger power, when it is attacking a smaller nation. Now, as far as my credentials are concerned as an activist and scholar, they are pretty clear. I didn't just participate in protests against the Iraq War. I published about it right when it was happening. Similarly, every other cause where a weaker group is oppressed by a larger group, I've written about it. I've talked about it. But this act of Imran Khan, I don't want to call it stupid, but it was unstatesmanlike and it has damaged Pakistan. And then the actions beyond that, so they walked it back, right? And now they're saying, well, we are neutral. By being neutral, we can be more useful. First of all, shaking hands with the leaders of the oppressive or attacking or invading power is not being neutral. It's taking sides. Taking sides at the moment when most of the world is mobilizing resources to stop the aggression. 2, neutrality would have been, what India and China have done. Not openly condemning the attack, but not aligning themselves with Russia at the moment when they are initiating the aggressive acts, right? What are the ramifications of that? So look at Pakistan's foreign trade. 2021, you can look up the figures. The largest trading partner for United States, for Pakistan was the United States, right? There were about $6 billion worth of exports to United States. Then was China and some European nations. Russia is not even listed in the top 20, right? Russia historically has never been a Pakistani ally. And now, even if they become Pakistani allies, right, even if Imran Khan has Putin's support, anytime you initiate a trade act or anything else with Russia, a sanctioned nation by the majority of nations of the planet, you automatically get sanctions for trading with a sanctioned regime. So at the end of the day, Pakistan has gained nothing and lost value in the world, lost value to the United States, to the European Union, 2 major trading blocs in the world, right? And Imran Khan has single-handedly been able to isolate Pakistan further. And so that's my opinion about an ill-informed and ill-constituted act of foreign policy at a time when more subtlety was needed, when more sophistication was needed. And it is going to come to haunt Pakistan in the future unless the damage is undone. Now coming to the vote of no confidence, which is going to happen tomorrow, right? First of all, it is the constitutional right of the opposition that if they have the votes to file a vote of no confidence, they can do that. So calling them traitors is absolutely absurd. That is part of the constitutional process of running democracy in Pakistan. But 2, the Prime Minister is now doing things that are actually highly damaging to the future of Pakistan. So in a jalsa, in a rally, he pulls out this letter which this powerful nation has sent, right? And then he shares that what the letter says is that if you try to fail the no confidence motion, we will harm Pakistan. That's the logic of the letter. So if Imran Khan really loves Pakistan and not his power, what should be his action? His action should be, if I let the vote of no confidence fail, Pakistan will have to pay for it. So then if he's a Pakistani leader who loves Pakistan, his emphasis should be to at least let the vote of no confidence proceed without trouble. Right? That would be the logical result. But more damagingly, by insinuating that a powerful nation, let's say it's America, is trying to force his hand, is trying to replace him. He has now put Pakistan, by embarrassing America, right, into a confrontational situation with the United States, which, let's not forget, is the largest trading partner of Pakistan. Also, a nation that is invested heavily in Pakistani military, right, and in Pakistani defense and culture. So every single time when Imran Khan in this crisis speaks to the public or shares his thoughts, he is saying things that are damaging Pakistan's foreign policy, that are isolating Pakistan further and further. Okay. In the international arena, then, he has made sure that Pakistan is more and more isolated and dependent on non-democratic powers. One of them happens to be Russia. Now, keep in mind that there are, narratives being mobilized by his supporters, right? His life is in danger. The narrative that comes out of it is that as if this one person is the only hope for Pakistan. Pakistanis shouldn't be proud of that if only one person is there who can save them. That's a fascist mode of thinking. I'm pretty sure that a nation of over 200 million people can come up with a few other people who can run the country, govern it, and take it forward. To say that without Imran Khan there will be no Pakistan is absurd and hubristic. And for Imran Khan to believe that is absolutely absurd and prideful and hubristic. So keep these things in mind, right, as this unfolds. There is another thing that he has unleashed in the last 3 years, and that is a politics of hate. We are no longer in disagreement with Nawaz Sharif or with Pakistan People's Party or other political parties. No. Now if you're not with Imran Khan, you're a traitor. You are automatically corrupt, right? And that kind of rhetoric, then what does it do? It destroys the fabric of the political system of Pakistan. We also should remember that Imran Khan didn't win the absolute mandate of the people. That's why his government is in crisis. Actually, the last person to do that was Nawaz Sharif. Imran Khan didn't even win enough votes to constitute a government without coalition partners. So when PTI formed the government, they were a weak government based in coalitions, and then they started convincing the people that they had the absolute mandate, and the mandate was to end corruption in Pakistan, and the best way to end corruption was to wipe out all opposition. That is politics of destruction, politics of hate, because there is no turning back from there if you take that stance. And yes, honesty is great, but fetishizing honesty at the cost of the future, at the cost of real politics, is not a good trait of leadership, because all leaders must learn to compromise in the interest of their nation, right? So, I usually don't post a lot of political commentaries here because it's primarily an educational channel, but I'm a post-colonialist. My work by its very nature is political. And I care about Pakistan, care enough to hazard an opinion or two. So it doesn't matter which party you are a part of, right? If you want a democratic Pakistan in which people have equal rights, you can do that only if you let democracy flourish. It's not an automatic process. It takes time for nations to develop the habits of democracy. And look at Pakistan's history. We have never really had uninterrupted democratic systems. This is actually just the third government in my lifetime which transitioned from one democratic government to another. So it needs time. And what Pakistan needs is not further isolation, but more integration into the regional economic and political systems and global economic and political systems. Right? That's how Pakistan will prosper. Its people will have a better future. Right? And what Imran Khan has done is actually isolated Pakistan more and made the future of Pakistan more precarious, right? More dependent on one or two nations. Yeah, rhetorically it makes huge sense to make these flourishing statements and slogans, but slogans don't build nations. Pragmatic work builds nations. Patient work builds nations. Diplomacy builds nations and makes them stable and gives them a place in the world. Keep that in mind. It doesn't matter who wins. But what we need to keep in mind is that Imran Khan, with his actions, have isolated Pakistan, made its foreign policy suspect, and made it almost a pariah nation in the world. And that at the end of the day, the people should hold him accountable for that. And it shouldn't just be whitewashed under this emotional rhetoric of we are independent and we are autonomous and he is honest and says what's on his mind. Now, great leaders don't say what's on their mind. Great leaders pause and ponder and think the consequences of their words on the lives of their people and on the future of their nations. That's what we ought to keep in mind. That's it. I hope this kind of gives you my views on the situation of Pakistani foreign policy and Ukraine and Prime Minister Imran Khan's actions in the last few weeks before the vote of no confidence. These are just my views. They are not coming from a place of negativity. They actually come from a place of love. And if anyone doubts my love for Pakistan, well, read my work and come and talk to me, and I'll let you know whether or not I belong to Potohar, to that small village where my ancestors have lived and where my parents and ancestors are buried, and that gives me the absolute right to speak for, not for, but about Pakistan and my Pakistani brothers and sisters. Thank you so much. Stay safe, take care of each other, be generous and kind, and as always, peace and love.